Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kidney Stories 2. Tonight, we have something extra special for you. Our guest tonight is Dawn Kurkowski. She has been fighting kidney disease since 1995. She has a remarkable kidney story that we are going to share with you tonight. She had a kidney transplant over 20 years ago. She is also a mental health therapist and licensed clinical social worker. She has used her work and her kidney experience to play it forward in her volunteer work and to help kidney patients promote organ donation. Some of that volunteer work includes Walk the Walk in New York City Central Park for the past 12 years, a mentor for the nonprofit organization Transplant Journey, Inc., run by Jen Benson, CEO. The link there, www.transplantjourney.org. She is a registered volunteer with her OPO New Jersey Sharing Network, and through COVID has held up very many volunteer activities. She is currently working on a book, Blessed by This Curse, about her blessing and curse of renal disease. Dawn, when the book is ready, your Uncle Jim will be happy to review it. She's also a facilitator for a vision loss group, anxiety management, and anger management group. She has not one, but two Facebook groups, Thriving with Chronic Illness and Transplant Experiences. She is one of Hal's heroes, our good friend Brenda, who writes the Hal the Owl books. We are going to start out tonight with something really special. We're going to start out tonight with a discussion with Dawn about COVID-19 and her decision about the vaccine as a kidney transplant patient. Please welcome our friend, Dawn Kurkowski. Dawn, how are you?
Good. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm very excited that you're here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
No worries. I wanted to get this out of the way up front in case we run out of time, because I know you've had some experience with it, and I know it's important to you. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with COVID-19? What happened to you with the virus?
Well, basically, when I got it, I just felt very tired in the beginning, but with time, I developed a very bad cough. I had a fever for about 4 days. One of the days, I got to a fever of about 103. However, I didn't go to the hospital right away until the cough really felt like it was getting out of control, and I started coughing up phlegm and so forth. And so I had went to the ER several days later, and an ER doctor had given me what they call had recommended me rather for monoclonal antibody treatment, which is now currently used to treat people who are very high risk of having more disastrous results from COVID. Not for people who are in serious shape on ventilators, but people who are of moderate COVID. I believe that treatment saved my life, and some of my doctors do as well. So supposedly the numbers are that it helps 70 to 75% of people get well faster and stay out of the hospital. And when I was in the hospital, they said I had a touch of COVID pneumonia, but luckily here I am to speak about it.
Okay, let me ask a few questions about it, Dawn. Approximately when did this take place?
This was December 22nd. My husband didn't feel that well because he ended up developing a cough and some symptoms. And I said, well, I live with you. Let's both get COVID tested. By December 23rd of 2020, we were tested and found out a couple of days later we were positive for COVID. So between the 23rd
so your husband too.
and the 30th.
Okay. Which hospital did you go to, the emergency room?
It was called Holy Name Hospital in Teaneck, New Jersey.
Okay. And the doctor there that took care of you, do you happen to know his name?
I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Okay. Okay. How long did the treatment take? Were you
So sure.
inpatient?
So it was an outpatient treatment. It was a 1 hour infusion, and basically they have you go for a 1 hour infusion. And let me tell you, the place looks a little bit like Fort Knox in a certain isolated area with everybody wearing masks, gowns, and shields, and it was just for people who had COVID. So it was very isolated looking. It took an hour to do the treatment. It was a slow infusion, and then you wait another hour so that they can make sure you don't have any side effects before going home. It probably took another day or two to kick in, but I can definitely say it was a help.
Okay. Did you have any side effects, any problems, any issues?
Not from that.
Okay. Now, recently you told me that you had the coronavirus vaccine as a kidney transplant patient. That's been sort of controversial. Can you tell us, why did you take the vaccine?
Okay, well, it had two reasons why. Uh, well, first part because I'm an essential worker, so I was already top of the groups list to be able to get the vaccine. My boss had asked me if I wanted to get the vaccine and told me they were setting it up for employees with the local hospital. That was one factor because I feared that when our agency opened up to in person appointments, because I currently do online appointments, that I could be in deeper trouble because I've already had it and didn't want to have it again. I checked with my nephrologist very last minute because the appointments were made last minute via, again, my employer. And they said, do you want it or don't you want it? And had like 2 days' notice to get in touch with my doctor. Luckily, I was able to text my doctor and say, hey, this is what's going on. Should I get it or not? And she told me, yes, go ahead and get it because you already had COVID. I don't want to see you have it again. And you're better off getting it than not. I feel strongly about it simply because I've already had COVID. And even though it was a moderate case, I don't want to risk ever getting either that or worse again. So to me, it was a matter of choice of which kind of side effects do I want to worry about? Should I worry about long term effects of the vaccine or worry about the fact that I know I could probably die if I got it again and it was worse? What happened to the sound?
Can you tell us what vaccine it was? Was it Moderna or Pfizer?
Moderna.
Okay. And 2 shots?
2 shots. I got the second one 2 days ago.
Okay, great. Great. All right. I wanted to make sure we got that out up front because you wrote me about it. And I just wanted to make sure that we covered that. We didn't run out of time. So,
Yes, and
um,
I did have side effects from both of them, but I want to say that that is my story. Some people that I know, like my friend Jonathan Trailer, had no side effects from it, and I just want to point out that everybody is different, and we really don't know what's going to happen when we get it, whether or not we're going to have side effects. And I think the best thing you can do is talk to your own doctors, nephrologists, and look at your own medical symptoms and medications, because even though we may have all kidney disease, where all of our bodies are different.
can you describe for me the nature of the side effects that you experienced?
Sure. The first time, which they believe is because I did it not too long after I had COVID. I had low grade 99 fevers 2 days in a row. My arm really hurt where they did the vaccine. And I was just very exhausted the first time I had it, and a little nauseousness and chills, which they say is common. The second time around, I had diarrhea, no real fever, a little bit of a chill, and my arm was sore but didn't hurt as much.
Back on track with regular questions now, Don. Um, Tell us the first time that you were exposed to organ donation issues. How did that come about?
When I was in college, I was about 20, and my stepsister had died of a brain aneurysm. I didn't know a lot about organ donation. All I knew is I found out a little while after is that my stepmother, my mother had donated her organs, and she got a letter back from a grandmother saying that it saved the grandmother's life so she can see her grandchildren get older. And then I immediately signed up for an organ donor card myself and spoke to people originally from the New Jersey Sharing Network when I was about 20.
Okay. Your stepmother's name is?
D. But she's no
Okay.
longer
And
my stepmother. She's no longer my stepmother. It hasn't been for like many, many years. But
oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry, Don.
oh no, that's quite okay. Um, no, just I had a very interesting life. Let's just say I had a few, and that's all right. My dad's now married to a very lovely woman. So,
Okay. Um, when did you first experience symptoms of kidney disease?
well, basically, I had what I now know to be symptoms. Um, when I was possibly a teenager, which was basically the first symptom I had during a school physical. I was basically told that you have a little too much protein in your urine. And I don't understand why, but a doctor said to my father and my, at that time, stepmother, don't worry about it. It's only a little. Boy, was that a mistake. Exactly. It makes me want to smack my head and wonder. I don't know what was
Well,
wrong with
you know,
that.
one of the classic symptoms that you have to worry about possible kidney failure is blood in the urine, protein in the urine. That's
Well, it was protein. I wasn't bleeding, so thank God for that. But it was, I guess it was so slight that they're like, oh, we'll address this at a later time. Of course, nobody did. And so I went on. And later in college, I had high blood pressure. Oh, here we go again, a symptom I didn't know about. And I had a regular doctor that prescribed me some blood pressure medicines. Well, here's the problem with prescribing for some 20-year-olds who have absolutely no idea about symptoms about anything and what they should do. They're not, some of us were not smart at 20 and just wanted to do what we wanted to do. So I went back to school with a prescription. I took it, never filled it again, but thought I could do it with diet and exercise. I don't know whether it was controlled or not because again, at 20, I never checked it, but I did take up a great eating and exercise plan and got off the school food plan and started to cook for myself a lot back then. So I did do myself some justice, learning how
okay.
to cook low salt foods and exercising more. So I will say it probably helped me in the right direction to graduation.
Very
Um,
good. I know that your issue started around 1995. The issues in college, approximately what year or years were those?
Graduated college at that time in about 93. I was class of 93. So 92, 93. But I didn't know that they were kidney symptoms. So that's why I figure about 95 was really the worst. Because I came home and then I'd say about 2 years later, 94, 95, I started to develop leg cramps. But I was working a full time job, taking two buses and a train to work, and walking a lot. And I really attributed the leg and ankle cramps to doing all that walking and being on my feet a lot and the long hours of my job. So, once again, I didn't know. So, I had a lot of symptoms that I know only now, thanks to urban health and doctors and other people, that, gee, I must have had kidney disease before I knew I had kidney disease.
When did you first see a doctor concerning your diagnosis of kidney disease?
Well, basically, I had seen an internist at about 24, and he just did some blood work and some tests. And then I went to work at a summer camp with a fellow I was dating and thought I was going to spend the entire summer there, pretty much enjoying myself and teaching radio and TV film, to my old major, to a bunch of kids in this camp. But my father called and made me come home and said, they got a test result back. They think there's something wrong with your kidneys. And I went, what? You got to be kidding me. I didn't want to come home. So I did come home about 24 years old. and they said, we think there's something wrong. You need to see a nephrologist. But when I first went to see the internist, I ended up seeing a fellow. I was surprised, and I went to see a fellow who was completely deaf, and was the doctor was, and was trying to read lips, as if finding out I had kidney disease wasn't confusing enough. They said nothing against people. I have a friends with disabilities, but that was weird when I was 20 something years old.
Sure.
Then they sent me to a nephrologist who I think was absolutely awful, because he sent me home with some prednisone every other day, large doses, some blood pressure pills, and basically said, you have to do this, and sent me home with a piece of paper with all the side effects of prednisone, but really didn't sit down with me to do to really explain anything. So I still to this day think the guy was a jerk. Sorry, no offense,
Can't say
but
I blame you for that.
some
I've
doctors
had
are
a few
not
nuts that I
really.
consider to be jerks too.
Let's
No,
just
when
spare a
were you
person
first
like me.
actually diagnosed, Don? When
So
did
I
they
was
come up
actually
with a
diagnosed.
diagnosis?
Yeah, by the time I was diagnosed, I was 25 and had 50% function of my kidneys. And basically, as I tell people, they said, you have 50% function left. And I said, well, why don't you just take out one of the kidneys, and then I should have 100%. I figured 1 and 1 equals 2, 50 and 50 is 100, right? No dice. Basically, it was 50% of each kidney. And he said, no, they're failing simultaneously. You're going to need a transplant. Bit of a shock.
Okay. Which doctor was this, Don? What was the doctor's name?
Which doctor was that? I think by the time I got to that point, it was Ronald Viscuso. He was
Okay.
actually, yeah, this doctor was great. He was actually part of the group of my now current nephrologist, who is no longer in that group, but working independently with her partner. So that was my start getting closer to the doctor I have now.
Okay. And were you hospitalized? Did you do anything like that at that point in time?
No, he basically kept me on the prednisone, lowered the dose, helped me to get on the transplant list. And I about it, yeah, because I started dialysis when I was 26, so I was probably pre-listed about a year before. He basically asked me which kind of dialysis I wanted, and I said, I don't want either. Do you have anything for the nausea? Yeah, no, really bad, because he gave me Reglan. It turned out I had got torticollitis from the Reglan, and that's like, torticollitis is like a Tourette syndrome almost, and it was really bad, and it happened at work. I had somebody have to rush me to the hospital who didn't know where my hospital was. That was an adventure by itself. I ran back to the doctors a week later and said, yeah, give me dialysis. That was no good.
Yeah. Which hospital are we talking about, Don? Where were you rushed to?
Okay, so basically there, I was taken to Claremont Hospital over in Belleville, New Jersey. Everything was pretty local to me. I lived in Essex County at that time, where my nephrologist went. So I went there first. And then basically, I was transplanted in St. Barnabas Hospital in Livingston.
Okay. When did you get the definitive diagnosis that you had FSGS?
Somewhere about between, yeah, about 25. Right before I was on dialysis, when they did the biopsy, and then they actually told me I had FSGS. But at the time, they didn't know as much about it. They tried to ask me if it was familial. I didn't know at the time, but when I tried to get a donor in my family, that's when we found out my mom had it also.
Okay. Where were you placed on dialysis initially?
It was actually a center by the name of, that was a Baxter Center at the time. I think it's a Fresenius now, which was in Belleville, New Jersey,
Okay.
not far from where I lived.
And the initial
Let's see
modality
where.
that you were placed on was what?
Okay, I need to back that up a little bit because I made a mistake. Okay, so
Okay.
initial modality. Okay, initial modality was actually PD. But you said, where did I go? So I just said where I went. But initially, I did PD for 2.5 years until I got peritonitis.
Okay. And then you did in-center dialysis?
And then I did in-center dialysis for 8 months. So, and then I was transplanted at 29.
Okay. Did you have any difficulty or were there problems while you were on dialysis? Besides
Yeah.
the obviously the infection of peritonitis.
Yes. So when I had the peritoneal dialysis, I was alone doing it in my apartment. And I was trying to work, so I came home late at night, and one of the other tenants tried to sue me for noise because I had to lift the heavy boxes by myself and was moving the IV pole around. So that was very interesting that I almost ended up being sued for disturbance because I was trying to do dialysis for myself. Medically, yeah, that was very interesting. Why on earth would a person do that to another person? He knew I was on dialysis. I to this day I don't know, but it was thrown out of. Luckily, it was thrown out of court. But then I had medically had the dialysis catheter from the PD twist up to where it twisted toward my heart and stopped working. So therefore, they had to replace it before I had the peritonitis. So that was the second one I had put in. That was a freak accident. They said happens rarely. Well, I was the rarely. That was pretty much mostly, aside from the usual of waking up at night when I switched to the cycler. I had started out with ambulatory, and when the catheter switched over, then I ended up on the cycler. And then that wasn't working that great, and then I ended up with the peritonitis, basically. Yeah, pretty much there. The hemo, basically, I had what a lot of people complain of, leg cramps, problems with potassium, problems with phosphorus was an even bigger problem. Like I itched to no end. But something interesting about that, I was told by my nephrologist at the time that I could take Tums as opposed to the prescription phosphate binders because they serve the same purpose. So I was eating Tums like candy because the regular phosphate binders caused my stomach a lot of havoc. Now, I don't know if doctors still recommend this, and as a doctor, I won't tell people what to do, but it's certainly something they can ask about.
Dawn, I'm getting a message that we're having problems with your computer at home. Could you log off and log back on for us?
Yeah, sure. I don't know what all that feedback is. Let me see. Hold on.
Okay.
Let me leave in.
All right. Just want to let everybody know. Next week, we're going to be doing some advocating for the National Kidney Foundation. We're going to be talking to our congressional members of Congress, my representative, Frank Mervyn, and my two senators, Senator Young and Senator Braun. And we are going to be talking about the Living Donor Protection Act, about funding and appropriation for kidney research and the development of better dialysis methods, for example, more emphasis on home dialysis, as I mentioned. And we're also going to be talking about legislation that has to do with home dialysis. So just to give you a heads up that that's kind of going on in the kidney political world. I know that some of you are interested in that. Also, there's a conversation that'll be coming up for the PKD Foundation through their advocacy champions group. We are going to be talking to Senator Braun's office on that issue. Two of the things we're going to be talking about is to make sure that polycystic kidney disease stays on the list for research funding and for lay advocacy notation of grants, et cetera. Those are things that I've done for the Department of Defense, and right now I'm doing again with the Polycystic Kidney Disease Foundation. It's very important kind of work because the things that get forwarded, of course, get researched, and those are the things that become innovations and helpful to resolving issues for people that suffer from PKD, for example, and maybe just maybe someday a cure. So those are the political things that I can talk to you about for a couple of minutes that are going on in the kidney world. I would like you to contact your members of Congress. You could do that through the National Kidney Foundation. You can do that through the AAKP. You can do that through the American Kidney Fund, and ask them to please co-sponsor and support the Living Donor Protection Act. That is an act that helps us get kidney donors and assists kidney donors in donating. As things stand right now, if you're an employed kidney donor, there's nothing that prevents your employer from, outside of a union contract, from shifting around things on your employment, your status, your particular employment level, your seniority, that kind of thing. They can change all that. They could tell you that you may not donate, that they won't give you the time off to go. Likewise, that act prevents discrimination from your insurance carrier. It keeps them from changing, canceling, altering your insurance, raising your rates, in particular with life, long-term care, and disability insurance. This is a piece of legislation that's on the move. So anything you can do to help us get it across the finish line would be greatly appreciated. Do we have Dawn back now?
Yeah, back. I'm back.
All right. Hi. We were talking a little bit about your transplant. We were getting ready to talk about your transplant, and you mentioned that you were transplanted at St. Barnabas, and I believe that was September 6th of 2000. Do I have the date right?
Correct.
Can you tell us about what led up to the transplant? How did you get notice? What did they have to say? All of that.
Okay, so in order to get notice, I was told to carry a pager around with me. That when it went off, that they would have a donor. Of course, I had several false alarms. So I ended up basically getting notified by phone, because it was about an hour before I was supposed to go to a job that I had, or get ready to go to a job that I have, maybe an hour or two. So first thing is when they called me, they said, "You're number 4. You're the 4th person eligible for this kidney." That's not exactly what you want to hear, but I'll take it. And I did, because they said, "So we'll call you back in an hour or two." Okay, fine. That was a lot of waiting. That was the longest hour or two ever. So they call me back and they tell me one person was pregnant, they couldn't do it. Another person had the flu, and I forgot what number 3 had. But all I knew is that kidney was mine. However, there was a small problem. They didn't have my blood work. And now this is very important for people who are going to in-center dialysis. Make sure they have your blood work up to date. This can be a very big or little problem depending upon how close you are to being able to get to a lab on time. Lucky for me, they said, "Could you be there in less than an hour for us to draw blood, do the blood, find out if you're actually a match with this person, and check all your antigens and everything, send you back home if we have to, and then you come back up?" Luckily for me, my grandfather, who was then in his 80s, was a really good driver and really fast. So I called my mother and my grandfather, who lived down the street, and said, "How fast can Pop Up get here?" So my mom says, "Give him 10 minutes." And then I call back, "Is he coming yet?" She said, "No, he has to put in his teeth." Well, after my grandfather put in his teeth, he rushed over and took all the side streets he knew up to that hospital, because he had taken me there for dialysis and other things. We rushed up to the hospital. They did the blood work. Luckily, I got back in time. It was a pretty close to almost total antigen match. Maybe you can shed light explaining what antigens are to people, because I'm not really good at remembering that, but that was it, and that was mine.
That was your transplant. Okay. A little bit about that. You were transplanted at St. Barnabas. That's in New Jersey. Is that correct?
That's in New Jersey. Yes, that's in Essex County. Same place as my friend Jean Syme, who's always on our broadcast. She had her transplant in the same place.
Oh,
Um, but not very long ago. And my mom also had a transplant there as well. So some very lucky people. Yeah, so basically when I went home, I called my boss and my family and said, "Hey, I'm going for a transplant. They're going to call me back to let me know what time to get up there." I get up there and all I know was there was a battery of a whole bunch of tests right before it, and the day went by like a blur, and before I know it, it was about 6 hours in surgery. I spent about 7 days in the hospital. The kidney peed on the table, which was great. um, Transplant patients know that that's a happy moment when you find out that your kidney worked right away and started off just right. Um, you know, it was a good one. Luckily for me, she was 19 years old. Sadly for her family, she was 19 years old.
Yeah. Now, as I understand it, this was a cadaver donor. Is that right?
Yes, it was.
Because she was in a car accident, and
Correct.
you were age 29 at the time. Dawn, did we lose you? Can you hear?
No, you didn't. Yeah, I could hear.
Okay, you were age 29 at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I understand that you know who your donor was and you know your donor family. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yes, I didn't originally know my donor family. So 5 years after my transplant, I went back to school for social work. I was at a internship, and somehow my transplant coordinator found the address of my internship at a hospital in Newark, New Jersey, and I got the letter there. I don't know how it ended up there and not my home, but I got a letter originally in Spanish, translated, uh, with with a second letter that was translated, that was from my donor family. So they were letting me know the name of my donor and a little bit about them, and saying that someday they wish to meet. This was only 5 years into my transplant, and for another 5 years or so, the donor sister, Yvette, and I would exchange Christmas cards. At this point, about a year or two ago, we became friends on Facebook, and we've been emailing probably for another about 5 years now or so. I've had her email. So now we've had much more contact, and we were talking about we'd like to meet after the COVID crisis is
Mm.
over. So I
Okay.
had sent her. So I want to tell you how that happened. I
Yeah.
I basically bombarded. Well, initially I wrote a thank you letter with a poem to my donor family, but after I had achieved many things with my transplant, I basically bombarded them, whether or not I was going to hear from them or not, with letters and pictures. I sent them wedding pictures, a photo of my master's degree graduation, because what I wanted to do was tell them that their family member's death was not in vain, and that this is the things I achieved with their family member's kidney, because I was hoping that it would make them just a little happier to see that the person used this gift of life to move on and do great things.
Okay. Your donor, just her first name. What was her name?
Marita.
Marita. And
Yeah.
the sister that you have contact with, just her first name. What is her first name?
Is a vet.
Okay. And you sent me a picture this evening of the donor sister with a bunch of holly owls, right?
Well, with a Hal the Owl, because being part of Hal's Heroes, which was created by Gene Simon, our friend Brenda Cortez, to honor people who were essential workers during the COVID crisis. Here's my little Hal the Owl. They got me one, so he always likes to be a part of things.
There you go.
So I decided I had nominated my donor family because to me they were the best heroes in my life that one could ever have. So I sent her a Hal around the time of my 20th transplant anniversary, to commemorate both that and her sister. So that's why she sent me that picture.
I understand that you've known the sister now for approximately 15 years. Is that correct?
About 15, with the last 10 being in much more contact.
Okay. Dawn, you've managed to maintain your transplant for over 20 years. Compared to you, I'm just a baby at 5. I'm wondering, how did you maintain your transplant for over 20 years?
I think
What's your
part of
secret?
well, one of the things that I want to mention is that I am overly vigilant about two things. One, assessing how my own body feels. If I get something that I think is abnormal for me, and everybody's different, I will call my doctor, contact my doctor's office, or maybe make an appointment depending upon what it is. I am overly vigilant when it comes to taking even supplements over the counter that may be recommended by somebody else, but not necessarily something my doctor recommended. I would call her or text her. I have the ability to text my doctor, luckily, and find out if something is good for me, or she'll get back to me very easily. So I'm very blessed like that. Um, Thankfully. The other thing is, if one doctor that I have recommends something or asks me to do something, a lot of times I say we need to be on the same page with my nephrologist. These are some very important things to me. And and obviously taking my transplant meds um, exactly how prescribed. However, if I find that there have been side effects that have been, I guess, bothersome, or not just bothersome, but something that becomes a problem when a med is changed, I immediately go to the doctor or seek her help. Um, Basically, because if something seems wrong for me, I'm going to tell a doctor about it, whether it's her or my diabetes doctor. I feel we are allowed to refuse something, but if it's in an educated way, educate ourselves, ask questions, be our own advocate, tell our doctors what's good for us.
Great. Um, After you were transplanted, did you have any concern that FSGS would be transmitted to your transplanted kidney? I know that's a big issue with FSGS people.
Strangely, thanks to urban health and people that I've heard of lately, I really, other than that, didn't even know that I could get it back. So, or maybe a little bit before urban health, because when I heard that, maybe I read an article, it could have been from you guys, I don't really know. I read an article about it, but not until about 18 years into my transplant. So I went to my doctor and I says, "Hey, could I get this again?" And her answer to me was this. It was very interesting. If you had a rejection episode or a major rejection episode early on in your transplant, or any episode that looked like it was FSGS early on, then you would be more likely to be in the group of people that gets it again. She said, but at 20 years, you're a lot less likely to get it again, and more likely not if you've never had an acute episode of rejection. Now, I don't know if this is true for everybody, and I'm not a doctor, so please don't quote me on this too much. This is only my experience and what I was told by my doctor. But no, I've never had acute rejection. And the only thing that appeared to be a problem was a creatinine that bounced up and down. But usually it was for other reasons, obviously, because I still have my transplant and still doing well.
I understand after your transplant that you did face a challenge with diabetes. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Right. So I also just learned that you could have had diabetes while on dialysis, but it might not have shown up. I've just recently learned that too. So I want to point out one thing really quick is no matter how long you have your transplant, and I'm sure some of our some of our veteran transplant persons like Kemp Bressler could point out that you can have your transplant a really long time and you're still learning. So I want to point out that 20 years plus, I am still learning every day about something new about this condition. But to speak to the diabetes, um, I also got it right after prednisone. Basically, I woke up a diabetic out of transplant. Um, and that was scary. They told me I was most likely going to be a diabetic afterward because of all the prednisone I was on and my history with it. I had to accept it. I don't think I accepted it very well in the beginning, but I basically now I'm doing pretty good. I have a Freestyle Libre in my arm, as a device to check my sugar on my iPhone. I'm on a couple of insulins, but I'm doing pretty good.
Good, good. I understand that you have had the same nephrologist for over 20 years. Is that right?
That's correct. So when I had originally, like I said, when I was seen by a doctor named Dr. Viscuso, who was just part of the team, so was my doctor Penny DeFranco. I would not be here today, I believe, if it was not for Penny DeFranco. She saved my life, my mother's life, my grandmother's life. She's seen all of us. Um, this doctor is my saving grace. I also gave her a howl as well and told her she was my hero during COVID. Because if I didn't have her, I don't know what I would do. She said it was the best award she ever got because it came from a patient, which was pretty awesome. But yeah, like I said, I don't know what I would have done without her. I am so blessed to have a doctor like that for so long. Like I said, I could text her. During my transplant, once I went on a vacation and I actually texted her, "Hey, can you call in a prescription because I got the flu while on vacation?" And she did. I have to mention my mom being in a nursing home for since 2019 when she had lung failure. She saw her as her doctor because we shared the nephrologist. Actually, my mom had her for like 15 years also. And she's the one that said to me, "Honey, don't worry. Your mom is not going to die. We're going to take good care of her. You don't have to worry." And despite a lot of other things that my mom has wrong, she's now a dialysis patient and some other things, but no, she didn't die. And my doctor was right. She's the one that if she didn't tell me that, I don't know if I would have believed it. So she's gotten me through much. That she's a friend and a doctor and a good human being, great human being.
Terrific, terrific. I noticed in your bio that after the transplant, you changed employment, and that was based on the issue with immunosuppressant drugs and Medicare. Can you tell us a little bit about why you changed employment and what you changed your employment
Okay, so what originally I was doing is well, I had several jobs, um including the one that really led me to my current position right now. I worked at a moving company. I'm going to start there. I worked at a moving company when I was on dialysis, and when dialysis first became too much, then I had left the company. So I went on disability for a little while, and when I felt ready to go back to work, um, my immunosuppressant drug coverage was starting to run out after 36 months. As people know, that happens, and basically didn't know what to do. So I went back to the last job I had before that that I really didn't like with the moving company. I begged for the job back because I didn't like them, but they didn't know that. So I needed the insurance. I don't believe in burning bridges because I never know when you'll need something. So I went back. What the heck? It turned out to be a good thing I went back. I went back. I had insurance coverage. I was transplanted. By that point, I met my husband there. So that was one thing that happened. And then I said, I really want to do something to help people. Sales is not it. So one of my coworkers said to me, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "I think social work." He said, "Why don't you take a couple of night classes while you're working here and see if you like it?" So that's basically what I did. I ended up leaving there, and I felt because I really needed to give back after this transplant. So not only did I leave, but I left. And when my husband, then boyfriend, left, he became my husband. So that was one good thing, great thing. And the other thing is I became a social worker and mental health worker to help people with anxiety, depression, any kind of major mental health issues. I now do crisis work for mental health work, anxiety, depression, you name it, a lot more than that during COVID, schizophrenia, bipolar, you name it.
to? Okay. I understand your husband's name is Tom. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And he's on with us tonight. Shout out to Tom. Thank you for supporting Don.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what a help that he has been to you, how meaningful he has been to you in your kidney life?
Well, Tom has been in my life the last 15 out of 20 years. I met him after I was transplanted. So by that point, I was pretty much independent with as far as self care. However, when we started to date, about a week and a half into dating, I got really sick with some terrible flu bug, uh, where I had to go to the hospital, where I was hospitalized probably for like a week. I went to the ER when we were just dating. Not that any guy wants to have to take you to the ER when you're first dating, like throwing up and other such things, and have to sit with you. Not exactly fun for your early dating time. But he did stay with me, held my hand, held my head, and all of that good stuff. And that's how I knew he was a keeper, basically. Right, 14-year anniversary, married
14-year
April.
anniversary, April.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
20. So yes, so that's how you know somebody's a keeper, if they're willing to hold your hand in the worst possible times, and hold your head and all of that good stuff. The good times are great, but when you got them during the bed, they're a keeper. And many times after that, he went to the ER with me. When I had a bout of pneumonia a few years ago, I was in the hospital almost a month, like half a month. Came home, went back to the hospital, and he prayed, he cried, he didn't want to leave. Uh, you know, it's been an amazing journey.
Okay. You mentioned that you obtained a master's in social work, and you're also a mental health clinical social worker. Can you tell us about the kind of issues and problems that you deal with, your way of playing it forward to other patients, particularly kidney patients?
Well, basically, within my job, it's a varied amount of clients. However, I do have the opportunity to talk to some people about kidney disease. As a clinician, you're not really supposed to tell people about your personal business. However, the resources that I have gleaned from being a kidney patient, and being a diabetic and other issues, health issues I have been able to share many of those resources and a lot of my insight about having chronic illness without even having to tell some of them, because that's just part of my job. But as far as kidney patients, I've gone on in my two Facebook groups and randomly in other Facebook groups to let people know both my experiences and also offer to help some people through mental health crisis. Just in the case of speaking to them, I've been spending the past year kind of doing that, reaching out to people who seem like they're depressed, helping them find out where they can get mental health help, helping people find out where they might be able to find support groups and other such things during the COVID crisis. Um, I've also done other volunteering. Like you noted, I've done walk the walk for. I spent about 12 years doing walk the walk, for National Kidney Foundation in New York. When my husband's knees got bad, though, in the last few years, we kind of stopped because he couldn't do the walking with me. But one of these days, I hope to get back there and do it again. We've also joined up to be volunteers with the New Jersey Sharing Network, my OPO. But right now, COVID's got some things on hold. I'm hoping that maybe I can do some speaking engagements virtually, so I'll be talking to them.
Um, let's talk about COVID a little bit. What steps have you taken to protect yourself and your husband, for example, at home, to prevent the reoccurrence of the COVID-19 infection?
Well, my husband, who did most of the shopping during this time, has bought a lot of extra cleaning products. We could have invested in Lysol and whatever else he can get his hands on. Basically, done a lot of the extra cleaning and disinfecting. He spent most of the time with him shopping and me just going to work. Basically, I'm isolated at work. My job has isolated me basically in my office, door closed, without contact virtually with practically nobody else but the occasional secretary that I need help with something for. They put all of us online, wearing masks, of course, washing our hands. But the strange thing is that we still got COVID. It waited till December, but we still got it. I thought we were going to get through 2020 unscathed, but it wasn't to happen. I want to say that you can do everything you can possibly do to help you with the anxiety about COVID. You can take all the steps you need, but there's still a possibility that it's not 100% safe and that you can get COVID. But I want to speak to the anxiety out there that everybody is having. The thing that I tell my clients and other kidney patients is that you could only control you. You can worry about all the other people not doing what they're supposed to be doing, but you can't fix them and you can't change them. So do you, do yourself, do your family, and encourage others, but we can't make other people do the things that they should be doing. So all you can do is be as careful as you could do. All you can do is be kind to other people because you don't know what they're going through, and really, that's about it. We don't know anything much else about other people and their lives. And it's better to not be so concerned and get involved with them when we feel angry that they're not doing the right thing, because you cannot change them. You can only control your own behavior, your own thoughts, and your own reactions. I just wanted to get that out there.
Okay. All right. We're in the home stretch, Don. Is there anything that we have not talked about or discussed tonight that you would like to add to the conversation? Is there anything that I skipped or forgot about? Anything of that nature?
I think we pretty well hit the mark on everything. Uh, Maybe I'd like to give a shout out to a couple people if they're out there. If my brother Steve Ceruto is watching, I know he was going to try to watch. Um, then shout out to him. If not, I'm sending you the broadcast, Steve. And also to thank you and Urban Health for having me on this program and other ones. Shout out to Jean Syme, because she's incredibly an awesome person, and I love you, and all my other friends there at Urban Health. Basically just a shout out to everybody. I'm really happy to be part of this group, and happy to be involved with Urban Health, Steve Belcher, and the whole gang.
Are you doing a show with the Urban Health Group? Do you have your own show?
I've just been on several. I've been on several host shows. I've been on Bella's. I've been on Steve's a couple of times. I've been on Jared's, with Jonathan Trailer a couple of times. Yeah, so I've kind of run the circuit. If there's anybody else left that would like me to be a guest, sure thing.
Oh,
I would actually be interested in the future of doing my own show. Just haven't gotten that far yet.
maybe we'll put in a shameless plug for you, Don. Maybe we can get Steve to sign you up and you can do a show. Any rate, I appreciate very much you taking time to speak with us and tell us your story. And thank you for coming on Kidney Stories too with your Uncle Jim.
Thank you, Uncle Jim. It's great to see you on here, and I'll be looking for your other shows.
Terrific. Thank you, Don. Take care. Have a good evening. All right. We got that one in with Dawn. We've got a couple more lined up. I'll be telling you about those real soon. So please check us out. Thank you for hanging with us tonight, and we will talk to you soon. Have a good evening.